Welcome back to Cheddar Business.
Our next segment is brought to you by AIM, the Association of Independent Mortgage Experts, a national nonprofit created exclusively to support independent mortgage brokers.
If you're in the process of buying a home, finding the right mortgage is no walk in the park. Joining us today for AIM's National Mortgage Brokers Day to discuss how a mortgage broker can simplify your mortgage process is AIM Chairman Anthony Casa. Anthony, great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
We've been taught to shop around for mortgages. Why should someone use a broker instead of shopping around and making all those calls on their own?
Well, I think for starters, the number one thing is the mortgage broker doesn't work for a bank or a lender, so they work for the consumer. That's a really big deal because if you go to a bank or a lender, you're only going to get what they're offering you. So there's no way for a consumer to really shop around with the hundreds of banks that are in the market in a timely fashion. So what the mortgage broker does is they're an expert at the lending process. They're the expert at all the guidelines that the banks have to offer. So they're going to take the consumer's specific scenario and place it with the right bank that has the lowest rate, lowest fees, and if you have mortgage insurance, the lowest mortgage insurance, which is another factor where there's big savings for the consumer.
Of course, the consumer has to pay the broker, so on net, can a consumer actually save money, though, by using a broker?
That's actually a big myth. Mortgage brokers are paid by the lender that the loan is transacted with. They're not paid by the consumer, so the consumer doesn't actually pay anything to the mortgage broker. So the actual savings to the consumer are going to be about 0.5% on average on the interest rate, and then in addition to that, they're going to pay zero fees. So the savings are pretty substantial. On your average 30-year fixed on a $300,000 loan amount, they're going to save about $100 a month minimum.
So overall cost, it does not cost anything to use.
There's no cost to work with a mortgage broker. They're solely compensated by the lender that they're sourcing that loan with.
How can a broker help people who don't have a 20% down payment or a high credit score secure one of these mortgages?
Well, that's really why you go to a mortgage broker. That's one of the primary reasons is your average bank is focused on the consumer that's going to put down 20% and have great credit. Mortgage brokers have the ability to source a loan with hundreds of banks, and there's banks that focus on consumers that can only put down 0 or 3%, and also low credit score consumers. So, the mortgage broker, the power of them is they have full optionality. They know all the guidelines from all the different lenders. So no matter what your situation is, you're going to be able to get a loan from a mortgage broker. You're not going to spin your wheels with the wrong lender.
How is the process different working with a mortgage broker versus directly with a lender, especially when it comes to the documents that you need to have available and ready?
There's a big difference. So there's a report that came out from AMIE this week that said the average length of a mortgage transaction with banks and lenders is about 42 days. With a mortgage broker, it's 15 days. So that's a huge disparity. And the reason why it's such a big disparity is the mortgage broker is going to assess that consumer's situation up front properly because they're experts, and they're only going to ask for the documentation that's truly required for that consumer's scenario. And as a result of that, that loan's going to go through the process faster. It's going to take stress off, the burden of stress off the consumer, and put them in a situation where they're not waiting till the last minute to hear, oh, my loan's clear to close, I can buy my home. They're going to know well ahead of time. So that's one of the biggest things about working with a mortgage broker is they make it really, really easy on the consumer.
So if some of these consumers want to refinance, considering how low rates currently are, how does the mortgage broker help with that?
It's the same exact process. Mortgage broker is not specific to purchase. They're a full mortgage. They offer every mortgage product that a consumer can get anywhere. I would tell a consumer that it's just as important on a refinance as it is on a purchase because most consumers tend to just go with the lender that currently has their mortgage. They don't shop around. Actually, half of the consumers do not shop around on the refinance transactions. And that's where there's the biggest savings. You want to make sure if you're going to refinance that you get the lowest rate. And since there's no urgency in that transaction because you're not buying a house, it's just, you already own the house, you might as well take the time, work with a mortgage broker and let them find you the best loan for your scenario.
I'm curious about awareness right now because what we're seeing right now with our demographic, millennials, is we're actually are finally starting to buy homes. We're having this household formation. We're moving out on our own. We're buying our own homes. Do you find that millennials are aware of the role of mortgage brokers?
It's interesting. For previous generations, mortgage brokers were having trouble with awareness. With the millennial generation, they're not having that issue. 1 out of 3 millennial home buyers are working with a mortgage broker, and millennials are actually powering the comeback of the mortgage broker. Their market share has doubled in the last 18 months on the back of millennial home buying. And the reason why is millennials are a little bit more cost sensitive. They do their research, they do their due diligence online, and what happens is when they do the research, they find a mortgage broker is the best option for them on their home buying experience. So You know, the interesting thing I tell everybody is you would think a millennial would want that digital mortgage, that rocket mortgage, or that online experience. They actually don't. They want the localized expertise that's going to shop around and get them the best deal across the board.
What about interest rates right now? Because there is a connection between the yields, there's a connection between the Fed funds rate and mortgages. Are you seeing a rise in interest around a potentially lower rate environment very quickly?
You know, the funny thing is, before rates went down is when you were seeing mortgage brokers really start to take off as far as market share goes. Now that rates have started to go down, you know, the refi market tends to be a banker, lender market. But overall, to give you an idea, the first quarter to the second quarter this year, mortgage broker volume grew by 73%.
Wow.
So that's astronomical.
Anthony Casa, chairman at AIM, thank you so much for joining us to kick off National Mortgage Brokers Day.